would say, those events that happen through
Well, the
people.
thing is okay. The creation energy section of existence in the creation, right? The universe, the creation universe. It's an intelligence. I've been saying that a lot recently, but that's so important to understand because it works through people, things, events, time itself. It works. And the thing is that like when I asked Rasmus about Jimmy, I noticed this for a while, that there were similarities to myself and other things as well. Not just that event. There's several other things, and I've been running a kind of an observation and a test, right? Science, right? Yay! And because of that, I came to realize that yes, the future is feeding the past. It's a troubling thought. How how is that possible? We are obviously moving ahead. Then we think about the perception of relativity. To keep it really simple here for just a moment. We have a natural destiny, or there is a natural path or trajectory that is according to a spiritual background. This spiritual energy, this creation energy, intelligence, is able to animate things through time, through things that we like, that we're attracted to, that we're not attracted to, in order to bring us to our destiny point. And once we think accordingly with a consciousness that is seeking the higher, or to keep it simple, a spiritual thinking human being, which we, most of us here were from childhood. From childhood, we already follow natural impulses, even from just being inside of the womb. And we gravitate to this, our material selves gravitate to this, then we connect with this natural blueprint destiny, and it allows us foresight to even see things into the future, sometimes unconsciously. So the creation impulses are, interestingly enough, feeding and flowing through the very material time itself, and thus space as well. And that is fascinating, because that really goes to show that, okay, for example, Arhat Arthasata, right? Arhat Arthasata was populated with the impulses of the beings that exist in Arhat Arthasata before these beings existed there. To begin with, the spiritual section of existence does not have a linear time the way that we understand. It has time, but it is not the way that the physical material time is. And because it exists in its own dimension, like a puppet master, it is able to trickle through the very fabric of the material time itself to send relevant impulses in order to create destinies. Now, that might just sound like some kind of philosophical jargon. It is not. The thing about it is that when we speak about destiny here for a moment, we're not just talking about, oh my God, I found my destiny or my purpose. Wow, yes, and now I must do this. It's not even about that. Literally, without this idea, the fabric and the structure of the entire universe and creation would collapse. Literally, for the stability that's necessary. Even for throwing a ball in the future, I've used that example before. Something that is still extraordinarily difficult to explain. But if you were to throw a ball, somehow in the spiritual dimension of existence, there's already the potentials and the possibilities of where that ball is to exist before that ball is even hurled.
Jedi, if I may quickly interrupt and ask a question.
Yeah.
Is this some sort of self-correcting mechanism? No?
Please elaborate, Please elaborate.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm getting it completely, but it seems like, okay, let's say there are some beings, even us, and you just said that Arata Tersata was fed with ideas coming from the future before those beings were there, right? So I could draw an analogy with still human beings like ourselves, that somehow we're getting right now impulses from ourselves from the future in order to improve our overall paths of life.
Right.
Does it sound like an idea? Huh?
Yes, but it's not just about improving per se. I mean, yes, evolving, yes. However, it's also about the stability of the universe and creation itself. It's kind of like nature's way of saying, well, not saying, but it's nature's failsafe against its own instability.
It's trying to find value in any situation, and it's picky, as we have talked about before, right?
Hold on, Franco.
It's creation has its own supremacy values, literally.
Yeah. Please go on.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Actually, it falls in line with my idea about animation. That I've talked a lot about of evolution, or how Darwinism is too narrow to actually describe evolution. Although it's part of the picture. I mean, there is competition in nature, but it's much more complex. It's an intelligent evolution that seeks greater and greater value.
Very well said.
Overall value. If someone can come up with a better term, please help me.
Well, do you see that what you said there about intelligent evolution is the key phrase? It is an intelligent evolution. Now, with Darwinism gets part of the picture, and the issue is that general society kind of settles on this idea without really understanding. It's like studying the evolution of computer cases without studying the software.
Yeah, and it's tied to consciousness, or the mind, universal mind.
Yes.
Creation, actually. Yeah, sorry.
That is what it's tied to, and that's, again, it comes back to, and forgive me for the lack of simplistic terms, but the so-called spiritual human being, or the so-called spiritually advanced, would be more naturally attuned to spiritual impulses. And because they would be more naturally attuned, they would be more likely to be more developed in consciousness and power and capability and so on and so forth in going in the right direction. That's why all of us sitting here right now have all been peace activists, have been philosophers, have been people of wisdom.
So what you're saying is that although Darwinism is something visible, strictly material, there is always
Darwinism is oversimplified. To put it
yes. Correct. However, there are those impulses that beings get, because I suppose it's not only human beings, right? And they're pretty much saying us, if I were to maybe slightly oversimplify, that hey, there's more to life than only this materialism. There are high values that we should atone to. I mean, atone? Am I saying the correct word? Be adjusted to, live according with?
You could say atone.
I would say that actually evolution, the intelligent evolution, which really is, seeks greater and greater value. So it's a part of it.
Yes.
It's part of the whole. So insofar competition is part of the picture, it's because it gets better value for the money.
Yeah, I think that's this. I think that's the case, especially in lower parts of evolution. But that in itself can teach us something. It can teach us that it's not necessarily about the competition per se, but the idea here is to get what is best. That's why even if, let's say in science, And just in these discussions, we refine. So, we're doing that idea naturally.
Which is also an intelligent evolution.
Exactly. So that's what it's ultimately about. And I've really been thinking about the intelligent evolution recently. And I come to realize the significant role of the so-called invisible. Although I don't like using invisible because I think it's a very linguistically attuned to a materialist point of view. And a materialist point of view, yes, our world is mostly materialist, but is it actually the proper education about what's going on? And I know this is, getting into linguistics, but I just want to say, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, it's invisible from just our eyes and our perception right off the bat with many other light spectrums and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Just like how we found black holes before we photographed them, right? We saw the effects of what it was doing with the nearby stars and whatnot, so we could calculate what was going on with the gravity, with the mass, with the speeds and velocities. We knew that something was there, and then we actually took a photograph. So nature naturally allows us to curiously and intuitively figure things out. And that's how it is also with the spiritual realm. And I think that's why it remains, especially to a materialist and people on lower stages of evolution, it remains a mystery to solve. It's not just something that's given on a silver platter, because within understanding the spiritual evolution, which is the true evolution, the true intelligent evolution, which the material is really just copycatting, then we understand the material. And that's probably why the secrets remain predominantly closed, mostly from the materialists, because a materialist discovering these ideas too quickly can create enormous damage with it. Even if the materialist becomes aware of the spiritual, they can continue this energy, so to speak, in a spiritual successor, pun intended. That, like, same with like atheism, that is no longer Christianity. They can continue those ideas and those behaviors in a new light, even though they might be aware of spiritual energy as an existence and the properties and the physics of it. So I guess that's why this knowledge remains closed off, because it can create tremendously highly developed technology, which makes absolute sense, because the idea is to work as one with nature. Working as one with nature means that it's not just working with the trees that you see outside. It's working with spiritual. To say that you're one with nature and not be one with the spiritual, in reality, cannot work. It's not just about going out and hugging a tree. You have to be one with the spiritual, so to speak. So that's why I think that this is mostly unavailable to most people, and why it's also a matter of finding out what's really going on, because you can make future predictions. You're given access through the consciousness, through the ideas that are sparked in your subconsciousness that come from the spiritual consciousness, because your material overall consciousness is good enough, worthy enough to receive these ideas from the spiritual section, and then it can enlighten you about your destiny, about what you're supposed to do. Or even if a person is not consciously aware, which many of our lifetimes were in the past, but they have that spiritual evolution, then they would unconsciously just get that idea and be like, oh, that's a good idea, I'm going to go according to it, because they're naturally attuned to it, and obviously having developed over so long. So where does that leave us? That leaves us in a very interesting position, because we're in a position with way more freedom than ever before. And that's because of being exposed to this depth of consciousness, overall consciousness, overall awareness of reality and existence. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Keep going.
If I may, unless you, Erasmus, because you seem to have kind of maybe more grasp on it.
Me?
Yeah, I have something to say, but I'm asking if maybe you have something to say, because...
Oh, I just said that I've said before that that I don't know where to start, but oh,
If you don't, I can.
Darwin, the original originator of the idea of natural selection was Alfred Russel Wallace, who did put emphasis on the idea of intelligent evolution. In fact, so it's not new, and obviously none of our discoveries are new anyway.
No.
It's just interesting that that society had put value in Darwin in the capitalistic world, while in Soviet Union they put emphasis on Peter Kropotkin's interpretation of evolution, where he said that in nature, more often than not, cooperation is the winner of the competition in the long run. And he could point to the fact that cells cooperate, ants cooperate, you got wolves and human beings, etc. That actually it's very often a factor of success that you cooperate with other beings.
It's funny you're mentioning it. I was having these thoughts yesterday as I was listening to that lady from Ukraine telling me about the poverty, and I had this thought, like, what is...
It's in the start of Tool's song Third Eye, and talking about what today a young boy on acid discovered that life is only a dream and we're an imagination of ourselves, everything is interconnected. I'm not saying it the exact way that he's saying it. He does it much more justice. But that's really how it is, and the creation works through things. So when you're, listen to me, when you're to say, okay, that person is really spiritually powerful, what are you saying? If you really are developed spiritually, like if you really are developed creationally, you literally have, it's not telepathy, telekinesis, pyrokinesis, that's baby shit compared to really being creationally powerful. And that's why this even remains a mystery. Because you have dominion over reality itself, over space and time itself. You have dominion over events. When you have that kind of power, you don't even need to have any physical power. You're staring events. And that's why I see how tremendously powerful beings like Arhat, Arthasata, and Patali are. Because to exist consciously in those dimensions is to pluck the strings of all destiny. That is tremendously powerful. That is more powerful than anything that we can create physically. Because you control the very substance, very essence that allows all physical things to exist. And with that, obviously, comes a lot of responsibility. So yeah, you can look at that as a basic rule of thumb. Developing spiritually and the kind of insights that you're offered and exposed to. But it really is about the spiritual. Like for real, it really is about the spiritual. Like it is the big boss of everything that's happening. Nature does have a supremacy, as you said, Rosie. It's not to neglect the material, by the way. It's just to show like the material in itself is almost like a game, so it does require activity, it does require, your consciousness and your observation. To look at these signs, to look at the creation, speaking through people, through events, through things, through science, there's so many different things. It can speak through anything and everything. It can animate all parts of existence, and I guess it really does make sense why they say that life is a miracle and the entire existence is a miracle. Like you don't have to be looking into the stars or for UFOs or any of that. All of existence is a miracle of this, and the more developed you become in creation, it totally makes sense. Because if you really are becoming more developed spiritually, just think about it. You're becoming closer to creation, right? So you're becoming, excuse me, becoming more and more like the one, the oneness. So if you're becoming more and more like the oneness, then it's exactly as Patali said here, which I would really like to read. It's not too long, but this is in one of the recommendations on page 144. It says here, behold, recognize as well the sense of the revealed love within this recommendation, which says to you that the creation has created you in love, so you therefore also beget love towards it in turn. Clasp yourself within it in comprehending trust in order that you integrate its understanding of love and its life with love within you, on and on, through the words given to you and all revelations in the visible and invisible form, whereby you grow in your knowledge about the truth and the love of creation. And it will be ever more conscious to you who and what the creation was, is, and will be. Then you are knowing where you belong for all great times, and you will be able to knowingly explain, I am there where the creation is, and what is its own is also belonging to me, because the creation is within me, and I myself am within the creation. Okay, I'm done.
So, if I was to ask maybe, I don't know, stupid question, like being creational stands for going along the rules, being a decent person, at least trying to be, having some order in a daily life, meditate, and so on and so forth, right?
Well, that's the that's mechanical understanding of it, yeah. Like those are the tasks to do, yeah. But all those tasks are really what is all that accomplishing? All that is just really a conduit for higher consciousness. So it really is about higher consciousness in what you do. Whether you have this routine or that schedule to do it, however you do it, the idea is to have that connection with the divine.
So the connection with the divine is ultimately about meditation.
Meditation is really a conduit to do that. It just happens to be an excellent conduit. But it
Right.
happens through thinking, through working, through writing, through running, through laughing, through playing, through loving, through sharing.
Oh, I got it.
Anything and everything can be used as a conduit.
So
Yes,
meditation is an enhancing exercise.
it's just a highly superior conduit.
Right.
The real meditation, mastery of meditation, is when you're meditating all the time. And those void meditations are really just a hyper focus connection. But when you walk with the creation breath behind you in the background, really just you see existence and life very differently. You see it the way how it really is supposed to be seen.
So, if I understand what you're saying, meditation is but one, albeit potent tool.
It's in the start of Tool's song Third Eye, and talking about what today a young boy on acid discovered that life is only a dream and we're an imagination of ourselves. Everything is interconnected. I'm not saying it the exact way that he's saying it. He does it much more justice. But that's really how it is, and the creation works through things. So when you're listen to me, when you're to say, okay, that person is really spiritually powerful, what are you saying? If you really are developed spiritually, like if you really are developed creationally, you literally have. It's not telepathy, telekinesis, pyrokinesis. That's baby shit compared to really being creationally powerful, and that's why this even remains a mystery, because you have dominion over reality itself, over space and time itself. You have dominion over events. When you have that kind of power, you don't even need to have any physical power. You're staring events. And that's why I see how tremendously powerful beings like Arahant, Arthasata, and Patali are. Because to exist consciously in those dimensions is to pluck the strings of all destiny. That is tremendously powerful. That is more powerful than anything that we can create physically. Because you control the very substance, very essence that allows all physical things to exist. And with that, obviously, comes a lot of responsibility. So yeah, you can look at that as a basic rule of thumb, developing spiritually and the kind of insights that you're offered and exposed to. But it really is about the spiritual. Like for real, it really is about the spiritual. Like it is the big boss of everything that's happening. Nature does have a supremacy, as you said, Rosie. It's not to neglect the material, by the way. It's just to show like the material in itself is almost like a game, so it does require activity, it does require, your consciousness and your observation. To look at these signs, to look at the creation, speaking through people, through events, through things, through science, there's so many different things. It can speak through anything and everything. It can animate all parts of existence, and I guess it really does make sense why they say that life is a miracle and the entire existence is a miracle. Like you don't have to be looking into the stars or for UFOs or any of that. All of existence is a miracle of this, and the more developed you become in creation, it totally makes sense. Because if you really are becoming more developed spiritually, just think about it. You're becoming closer to creation, right? So you're becoming more and more like the oneness. So if you're becoming more and more like the oneness, then it's exactly as Patali said here, which I would really like to read. It's not too long, but this is in one of the recommendations on page 144. It says here, "Behold, recognize as well the sense of the revealed love within this recommendation, which says to you that the creation has created you in love, so you therefore also beget love towards it in turn. Clasp yourself within it in comprehending trust in order that you integrate its understanding of love and its life with love within you, on and on, through the words given to you and all revelations in the visible and invisible form, whereby you grow in your knowledge about the truth and the love of creation. And it will be ever more conscious to you who and what the creation was, is, and will be. Then you are knowing where you belong for all great times, and you will be able to knowingly explain, I am there where the creation is, and what is its own is also belonging to me, because the creation is within me, and I myself am within creation." Okay, I'm done.
So, if I was to ask maybe, I don't know, stupid question, like being creational stands for going along the rules, being a decent person, at least trying to be, having some order in a daily life, meditate, and so on and so forth, right?
That's that's mechanical understanding of it, yeah. Like those are the tasks to do, yeah. But all those tasks are really, what is all that accomplishing? All that is just really a conduit for higher consciousness. So it really is about higher consciousness in what you do. Whether you have this routine or that schedule to do it, however you do it, the idea is to have that connection with the divine.
So the connection with the divine is ultimately about meditation.
Meditation is really a conduit to do that. It just happens to be an excellent conduit. But it happens
Right.
through thinking, through working, through writing, through running, through laughing, through playing, through loving, through sharing.
Oh, I got it.
Anything and everything can be used as a conduit.
So meditation is an enhancing exercise.
It's just a highly superior combat.
Right.
The real meditation, mastery of meditation, is when you're meditating all the time. And those void meditations are really just a hyper focus connection. But when you walk with the creation breath behind you in the background, really just you see existence and life very differently. You see it the way how it really is supposed to be seen.
So, if I understand what you're saying, meditation is but one, albeit potent tool.
Yeah, I had all this insight, like and sometimes it just comes like that, because today I was just gonna chill out and be all, in my cave by myself. But like the insight just came out of nowhere. I was like, oh my god, I have to share this. I have to share this. It's something really important. Again, that in itself was probably just a very important spiritual impulse that I got. That because I've trained myself for years now, decades, in going in this path, my material personality is aligned to be what the Tao called, I guess, a creation personality. So I'm open to these impulses, and I'm open, I'm available to them when they come, of course, not to force them either. So there's a modesty as well to it. Is that it's like, you're not going full J per se and overreaching.
Jay, may I? I'm sorry, Jedi.
Yeah.
May I assist you
Yes, please.
to explain that stuff in a very simplistic way? I think what you're trying to tell us that all those things that are being described by Billy in his books, be creational, blah, blah, blah. On one hand, it's obvious, but on the other hand, it's very important, and the magnitude of importance has been just imposed to you. And I think it's worthy every now and then to remind ourselves how important it is. So it's not about slogans, but in a way, it is literally about having power over the world surrounding us. And of course, with power comes the responsibility. So growing consciousness, be aligned with creation and power, more insight shall be given to you. I mean, it sounds simplistic, but please.
No, well, very well said. I mean, look, lately I've thought about not that I care to either, but again, I've been going through a very massive spiritual evolution. Very massive spiritual evolution. It's really taught me a lot of insight. So I looked at a couple figures like Bach and Akhenaten and Thoth of late as well. But what do these figures all have in common, especially Akhenaten and Bach? And they serve the divine. Their whole lifetime was dedicated to this divine. Job as well, like his whole lifetime was dedicated to the divine. So I started questioning that. Like, okay, what is this about? Why has this naturally, unconsciously manifested itself in all of these incarnations, including mine? Let me tell you something. This lifetime, ever since I was small, I was born into the right parents, of course, duh, because that's how it happens with creation energy and even the workings of Arahat Arthasatha at this point in the play art. Not just with myself, by the way, but with you guys as well. But I just happened to be born into the right parents that happened to whisper the right things. And I just came to see that from small, even without my parents whispering stuff to me, I wanted to be a spiritual person. That was like in the back of my head. Like I always wanted this connection with the so-called divine, with the universe, with the cosmos, with the mystery, with it, right? And that desire has manifested itself in multiple incarnations. So, for example, with Akhenaten, First of all, that wasn't even his real name. That's what he renamed himself to. And that name means effective for Aten. Aten at that time was taught to be creation, basically, right? And it was an amazingly powerful move toward the truth, because back then Egyptians worshipped multiple gods, and that was a tremendously important step in the right direction, because it moved from, again, polytheism to monotheism. And even Patale spoke about that in Decalogue, that the right monotheism is obviously creation. And that was Akhenaten's thing, was he literally said, he made himself the high priest, banned all of the other temples, said, nah, fuck you guys are out of a job. That pissed off the priests, so he had to take the 50,000 royal subjects, go out into the desert, like some dune shit, and build utopia with the people who subscribe to those teachings of Aten, right? And even his name being effective for Aten has a similarity with my name, hand of God or hand of creation. And I came to notice this also with Bach. His music, and of course he was a product of his time, just like Akhenaten, product of his time, where you didn't have anything like this, so it was the Egyptian god, so come up with Aten, right? And just like Bach, who was also a product of his time, his writings, as musicologists say, are very divine. The idea or the philosophy and design behind Bach's music is literally transcendence into the divine. Like that is what it is about. When you listen to music, to music theory, or excuse me, that's the musical theory of Bach's music. That is literally what it was designed for. When I remember Bach, I don't just hear instrumentals. I hear a heavenly choir singing, because that's what he was interested in. He was, again, Lutheran, Christian, product of his environment. But that was the way that he sought to connect to the divine. So throughout multiple lifetimes, again and again and again and again, over and over and over, and I came to realize that all of these words, divine, creation, Aten, God, it's not so important. I mean, creation is obviously probably the better word than something like God or something. But obviously the creation don't even necessarily use this word. They have their own word that does not sound like creation. And obviously different languages, etc., etc. So in the literal context of a word itself, the word has many names and no name at all. So whatever you choose to call it, it's irrelevant right now. The bottom line is that how the spiritual manifests anyway is it uses whatever it needs to use in its environment, in its time, in its space, to get to make its existence known through the material dream. And that is exactly why I come back to saying that the connection to the divine, whatever you want to call it, the connection to creation, the connection to the spiritual, is the most important goal. It is the purpose of evolution itself. Evolution is bound and tied by it. So there, I rest my case.
I literally wanted to pick my mug with coffee and speak to it. I reached for Mike instead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, man.
Look, what I really wanted to say is you have given us something to, I suppose, stuff to sink into our consciousness, but I guess on one hand, if you deeply elaborate, it's this and that and the other, but it's in a way also very simple. Like I said previously, it's about evolution and living, acting, being according to, right?
Yeah. The more and more you do that as well, it's like you create subsequent personalities that do that better. That's just really interesting.
You're saying to us, hey folks, it's worth it to be good, decent person, And
feel like a child, man. I feel like if people really have this enlightenment of consciousness, they can't really be depressed. Like, yeah, you can go through frustrations and stuff, but it's worth it because, damn, like, life is a lot more miraculous. Existence in itself. It really is about consciousness. It really is that consciousness really brings the enlightenment and the butterfly. I really see that.
This is a random comment, but I just want to say I really love Mass and Minor B.
That is an excellent piece.
I thought of that immediately.
somebody wrote something?
When you said, when you mentioned about the nature of box music being divine. That's,
yeah, Ten speaking, you don't hear him?
Oh, I'm sorry, I just muted. I'm sorry, sorry.
Can you hear him now?
Yes.
Okay. Can you say that over? I don't know if you hear.
Yeah. No, just when you mentioned the nature of box music being divine, like that's what comes to mind for me is Mass and Minor B. I remember listening to that several times.
Yes. Yeah, that's what it's always. Okay, let's look at another one. Emotep. Emotep as well. Also about serving the divine. Over and over and over again. Albert Einstein was the same as well. He just did it through science. Merlin as well. Same thing. Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius is about the divine. Hello, meditations. I came to realize it. I came to see it. You know, John was really about the divine. So much so that your boy was out there in the wilderness eating locusts. Damn.
Jedi, from what you're saying, when I compare your incarnations and Antoni's, it seems like Antoni's past incarnations sometimes were like having somebody who'd go to extremes. Like you're a bit of a crazy friend, right, Antoni? Am I right?
Which ones do you...
No, I mean like being very passionate, like when we spoke about
Do you really want to know, dude? Like it's do you know like this is gonna sound like a weird thing. Like the figure Jesus Christ died for the people's sins.
yeah, sure, go ahead, please.
That's kind of what happened with my past lifetimes, man.
Yeah.
To be quite blunt, died for the people's sins, man. The original sin, the gene manipulation. You know.
Oh Jesus! Now so
I felt. So I mean, look. How do I explain this? I went through all this, I don't know, for 2,300 years to try to figure out the problems on this planet. Because Billy, you never saw him like really go into action on this planet. You know what I mean? He was always just the teacher. He kind of stayed back. Where, I got involved with the Earth people and things like that. And that led me down a pretty interesting path. And someone had to go out there and experience it so they can, I guess, inform the Earth people on what they do wrong in their thinking and their acting and their feeling. Someone had to have the experience, You have to go through hell to make it through heaven.
I think you're not the only one.
I believe so.
Funny, I just watched that episode with Deep Space Nine, and there was the episode about the shapeshifters, and it's kind of the same. Although they're masters of the universe, they send people out to experience how it is, so then they can go back and feed them with information.
It's like the creation itself, really.
And Antonio, obviously, I meant no offense, right? Just my
No. You're right, though.
Sure.
Well, the thing is with Seb's incarnations, from what I've noticed, is that it was entrusted many times to be, frankly, boy wonder. So a lot was placed on it, but not necessarily as a teacher. Because as Seb said, Billy was more doing teaching roles, more, in that regard, staying at home. Although that's very figuratively speaking. He traveled a lot as well. But the thing is that a lot of what Seb had to do was go out there. That's why you had people like Alexander, or why Anatole was to be known as a wandering herald. Same with Marion as well, wandering heralds, right? So that idea is what was entrusted a lot into Seb's incarnations. And if the conditions are right, it's perfect. This lifetime, the conditions are right. So the potential can really expand. But because Earth is such a fucked place, by the way, which, I'm speaking about Seb, but it's not just with Seb either. All of us have been fucked by when the conditions are not right. Because either the material personality didn't necessarily integrate properly with what was going on, with the time, with the wisdom necessary to execute its destiny. There's a lot of factors, but that's the problem with when you have highly developed spiritual forms existing in a lowly developed world. It creates all kinds of confusion and entanglement. And if the spiritual lineage doesn't have some personalities that are at least consciously aware some degree of what's going on, they can really get lost in the sauce.
I literally know what you mean, Jedi.
Yeah, exceptionally so. Because he talked about the transmigration of souls, the whole idea of escaping the reincarnation wheel. And that in itself technically has truth to it with what we have to do with escaping beyond the material plane to move into higher dimensions. How then can Pythagoras have thought of something like that thousands, well, not, too long ago, technically speaking, from a universal perspective, but how could he come up with that idea so long ago? And then you can have Bach move into, worshiping the divine in the way that he did with Jesus. Both these men also share the same similarity of enlightenment. How they produced it was different. Pythagoras, that time, had more openness outside of only the traditional Lutheran or general Christian ideas, for that matter, or many religious sects and stuff like that. There was more openness, and back then there was even an extraterrestrial, a Pleiadian, that was influencing Pythagoras, Aristotle, and many of the other philosophers of the time. So back then they had that access to that information. This is something I really want you to consider, because Pythagoras had access to that Pleiadian, Aristotle had access to that Pleiadian. Pythagoras went high in discovering past lives and stuff like that. Aristotle didn't even do that. And I've noticed something here in this lifetime as well. We got access to certain information, and then we took it to another level yet again. Pythagoras had a very special lifetime, and this one is also very special, not just for me, but for everybody here. We have this exposure to this information, and that's why today I guess I got this impulse to talk to you guys about, okay, the mission, books, publication, films, movies. Yes, I love it all. It's great. Game servers, yeah, great. Thumbs up. However, I really want to remind you guys about something here. Ultimately, the science is good, the physics is good, discussing all of these things, but ultimately, we're really here for a very spiritual purpose. The only reason that we have access to even understand the science and the physics of, especially in high developmental sciences, the only reason we have access to that is because of the spiritual. None of you did not, you all received impulses because of spiritual, because you had a certain spiritual evolution that was ready, and the material personalities that you inhabit was capable of understanding those impulses And that's the only reason why we've been given access to understand certain technicalities in the material, which will further as time goes on. So make no mistake, this so-called spiritual, the so-called creation energy evolution, or the creation consciousness evolution, is definitely number one. It's the reason that we have all of these insights. Make no mistake about it. I'm not saying that our material selves are not doing the work. Of course we are. But it's because of that connection that we do have the impulses. And remember how I said creation works through everything. It works through even time itself. The impulses flowing from the future is in the creation energy spirit. It's flowing through time itself. So having that consciousness gives us access to inhuman knowledge and inhuman feats. This is also the case for some of us who have come back from higher spiritual levels, can tap into certain information that we can bring into consciousness in this lifetime. Anyway, rant's over. Very nice to see you, Vincent, by the way.
How are you, Jedi?
Good, good, good. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Still surviving.
Surviving is what we must do, my friend. We've just been recording these. You know, there's a couple clips. I don't know when exactly you came in. I've just been kind of walking around and not looking at the computer. A lot of insights here today. A lot of insights. A lot. Good to have you here.
I'm trying to work with Waldemar about a few papers that can hopefully form some foundation of time travel to everyone.
I am looking forward to this. I've been waiting for this.
Oh, well, we're working hard.
Oh, you guys got me excited. That one I think we are definitely going to record, by the way. Definitely.
That's good.
Sev, are you here?
Who, me?
Yeah, Sev.
Yeah, what up?
What do you think about creation consciousness evolution?
It's the way to go. It is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Everybody, 1, 2, 3. This is the way.
This is the way. Do you know the way, brother? I mean, here, let me define this question even more for you, Sev. Let's make it even more personal. Because you're an artist. What does creation mean to you?
It means a minute of silence, Antoni.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Look, I'm just so tempted to say something stupid. Look, I'll mute.
No, it's all good, man. I mean, bringing something forth into existence.
To me, that sounds like a miracle.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Yeah, I really don't know what else to say right now. I'm sorry, my energy is kind of low.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Put something into existence. I mean, anybody could feel free to interpret or answer that question. I mean,
Sometimes it's the fact that everything is, or that there even is an existence, is kind of like a mind-boggling thing to behold. Like, what am I?
that bring like meaning to life?
Even with everything that you explained, Jedi, even that simple question of what am I, still there's a certain mystery to it. Even
Mm-hmm.
you know, I can imagine it, or I try to picture it in my mind. What is the essence of this spiritual, so to say? You know, explaining its effects or its mechanisms is different than experiencing its essence and what it is in its entirety, I think. And that's what is fascinating to me about the creation. And it makes me want to integrate it in my consciousness or in my life.
So you willingly do it?
Do what?
Integrate creation into your consciousness in your life.
I try, or I strive towards that. I can't say I succeed all the time, but it is something that I strive towards. Yeah, and they just try not to do too much all at once. Just try to add bits as I go along.
I think that's the right way. I think that is the way. The integration of such thought, such idea. It has such an enlightening effect on the human, and if their thoughts and their feelings are enlightened in such a way, then there's literally a physical change in the body. And it does give credence to this simple idea that thoughts determine the health.
I think it's good that we have these conversations too, because I find that when I won't say force, but when I try to put myself out there and get involved in the conversation, I notice the effect it has on my own consciousness. The better.
True, it kind of reminds us of who we are.
There's just a feeling I feel like we're elevating each other more and more.
Yeah. Tam, that's exactly why. That's exactly what I said. Why I said what I said about MMOs. It's like.
Yeah, the block.
Yeah. It's not like you're trying to be an elitist or anything like that. It's just, why would I want to be around things that are not elevating me? Things that don't make me feel good. Life doesn't have struggle. You know what I mean?
Of course. So, a quick aside on that topic. Do you remember when I went to the other free company?
Yeah.
I immediately felt the difference. I was like, I need to go back because it's like it's just not the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Because the thing is it's not to say I want to dodge people. I like people. I like human beings. I like human beings. Human beings are cool. It's just
Like in small bursts, like 2 conversations with a person, then I'm saturated.
I agreed.
So do I. I also agree.
I was just paraphrasing George Carlin. That was hilarious.
No, but that's perfect.
I like people. I'm surprising you today. In short bursts.
Short burst.
No, look, folks. The jokes on. I can't believe I'm saying that. Oh my god. I can't believe I'm saying that. Jokes on side, but I sticked my nose out yesterday, and I almost regret it.
Oh.
I mean, seriously, it's so hard to talk sense to people. And when you see how they interact, it seems like they're all almost jumping to each other's throats.
Yeah.
And you're in the middle, you're trying to explain things to them, certain basics, certain, well, historical facts. And when I referred my conversation to somebody else, I heard stuff like, you should have told her this and that and the other. I'm referring to the conversation with that Ukrainian lady. Like, she has, unfortunately, the mindset of a, well, nationalistic, to put it mildly. But,
Oh God.
but like, what do we do with that? I mean, she's a wife of a friend of mine. I'm not gonna jump to her throat, especially when I'm invited to their place. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And then when I talk to third party person, I heard, you should have this, you should have that. I mean, and that's what you say about us having a hard time over here because you try to talk sense to people and you're being fucking criticized for that, or they don't understand you.
You know what I think works is trying to explain things to people through cause and effect, because nobody can deny cause and effect, and they can't jump on you for that. I've done it that way with some people, and it seems to have worked.
I was about to stream some examples from academia where people apparently would deny cause and effect.
What?
So you never know, but that's academia. So that's.
I'm not involved in academia.
No, normal, average people are more likely to understand it. Actually, you could see that from the comment section.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out. Let's wait until Seth gets back home because you really want to show him, right?
I can do it another day. But I would like to ask you, Valdemar, did you initiate the conversation? Because I have made this